Hey guys, so today I'm here to do my first story time video, yay, 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 featuring my special guest, the baby. I'm not going to say his name. Yeah, he's saying hi to you guys. So we're not going to show him, we're just going to leave him right here, occupied. So if you hear weird noises, it's this little guy. Right, Becker? Yeah, okay. So today, like I said, it's my first story time video on how I got fired from my job. Okay, sorry, he's like talking over me. Anyways, how I got fired from my job. I don't really like to use the term fired because I feel like I did something intentionally wrong to get fired, but I didn't. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Side note, do you guys like my shirt? It says Pugs and Hug Kisses. Can I start now? Okay, so about a year ago, almost, I think it was the end of May, beginning of June, I can't really remember. Anyways, I got my first job at a daycare. And if you guys know me, you know I love kids and I love babies. I mean, obviously, there's one next to me. But that's besides the point. So I got a job as an assistant teacher in the infant room, which is the baby room. The way daycares work, they have infant and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I was in the infant room, and the ages, there was 2 sides. They were basically like 2 rooms, like in one, like connected basically. So one room, one side, you can say, was 6 weeks to 6 months, and the older side was 6 months to 12 months. Yeah, that's right. So I got hired, and they were like, yeah, you're gonna be on the younger side. Okay, cool. At that time, I had 2 babies who were getting ready. No, who weren't getting ready. 2 babies who were there for a while, and then the 2 other babies that were on that side, they were getting ready to go over to the older side because they were older or whatever. Anyways, and then after I started, I got 2 new babies. Like 2 new babies that started the same time I did. So yeah. So not even after a month being there, I got promoted to lead teacher. And what lead teacher is, basically, I'm just going to go through this real fast. There's 3 teachers in the whole room. The lead teacher, who is in charge of both sides and who's there all day. So she could go like both sides. She's in charge of both sides, basically. And then the other 2 teachers were on the other side. So like I'd be on one side, and then obviously there had to be another teacher for the other side because you can only have 4 babies to 1 kid. That's like the Texas law or something like that. So yeah, so there's 2 other teachers on that side. Well, those 2 teachers quit, so we got 2 new teachers. Here you go. Sorry. We got 2 new teachers, and we're just gonna name them Cassidy and Olga because honestly, like, this girl, like, now she reminds me of an Olga. Not trying to be mean. I mean, I liked her at first. That's how she got hired, just because I had to say if I liked her or not. But after what happened, she was definitely Olga, and I'll get there in a second. So yeah, everything was good, yeah. And then around, I want to say September-ish, my babies were getting ready to move to the older side because they were all 6 months or older. So once they moved to the older side, I started being on the older side most of the time because I got attached to them and they got attached to me. So I wanted, to follow them where they went, to the older side. So they ended up going to the older side and I ended up staying on the older side. So then October rolls around and this is when Olga becomes hired. Sorry, I had to grab Becker because he started getting fussy. Anyways, so I ended up going to the older side, like staying there majority of the time, and we were getting new babies on the younger side. And when Olga had started, she started with the younger babies, kind of like how I did. It's funny how that works out. But yeah, so she was on the younger side. Well, the way it worked was I would go there in the morning and I would have a break. So I'd be on the younger side in the morning with the younger babies, and I'd get a break around 10:30, so I'd go to lunch. I'd come back, she would like come in to the younger side, take my place, I'd go to lunch, come back 2 hours, take the ladies' side that was on the older side, like take her place so she could go home. Well, one day Olga decided, oh, I'm gonna go to the older side. And usually like I tell her, hey, you're gonna be on the younger side majority of the time, because by this point the babies were used to her and stuff like that. So she was on the older side and I was on the younger side with the younger babies. Well, there's one baby in particular, we'll name him Philip. Why not Philip? Yeah, this little Asian baby, his name was Philip, and he was crying and crying and crying. And I was like, hey, Olga, do you know how to make Philip stop crying? He won't take his bottle, he won't, do anything. She was like, yeah, let me come on that side. So we switched sides because we can't leave the babies alone. So we switched sides and she got Philip to calm down. So I was like, okay, thank you, Around, I want to say 10 minutes later, Philip started screaming at the top of his lungs, and he has very fair skin, so he turned red easily. So Philip started screaming and screaming, so I didn't call. One of the administration ladies, like the office ladies, she was walking around, and usually, if we need help, they'll come help us. Well, we're gonna name this lady Gretchen, because nobody liked her. I don't think even anybody still likes her to this day. But yeah, so Miss Gretchen came in. She's like, oh, do you want me to take Philip for you? Because the other babies started crying. I was like, yeah, can you take Philip for me? So she goes ahead and takes Philip with her, tries to feed him the bottle, and when she came in the room, Philip was screaming, and you can tell he was screaming. Well, she walks him around for 15 minutes. She says, oh, he didn't really eat that much. But here's Philip back. And I said, oh, thank you. So this other girl comes in to help. We're going to name her Rose. I'm not using anybody's real name. So Rose comes in and she's like, oh, do you need me to help you? I was like, yeah, can you help me, do whatever. So I ended up putting Philip, on his playmat in the swing, holding him, trying to do stuff to make him happy. Oh, sorry, I'm like eating his toys. Here you go. Do stuff happy. So on the other side, my babies were on that side, like my original babies. So they were on that side. And Olga goes, hey, do you want to come to this side? Because one of the babies keeps like calling you. He used to call me Go-Go because I taught him go-go, like, go-go, to go. So he called me Go-Go. That was his name for me. So I was like, yeah, I'll come to the older side. So I came to the older side, and Olga went to the younger side with Rose. Well, Rose was like, hey, she was like, hey, I need to change Philip's diaper. And I was like, okay, go ahead, change his diaper, that's fine. Because she wasn't part of the room. She was like just the helper lady. So she changed his diaper, and she was like, hey, do you notice these marks like on his side right here? And I was like, no, what are they? So I looked, and like they were like red little marks, like someone had like, I don't know, like something had like pinched him or something like that. So I was like, no, I haven't seen those. I know he got red earlier from crying so much. And she was like, oh yeah, he's really red. And I was like, that's really weird. So Olga, she was like, hey, can I call up to the office and have the administrator come check this out, because the Texas law, I guess, is if you get hurt or something, you have to report it. So we're like, yeah, let's have this checked out, because that's weird. Like, how did the baby get the marks? So the Miss Gretchen comes, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna take the baby to the office and take pictures of it so I can send it to my boss, the owner of the daycare, which she wasn't there at the time. So I was like, okay, cool, go ahead and do that. That's fine. And at this point, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which was snack time for the older babies. So I was like, in my own world, busy feeding the babies, basically. So Rose ends up going with Miss Gretchen to the office and inspecting, I guess you can say, the baby and stuff like that. Then Rose comes back and she has Olga go. She gets talked to, and then Rose goes back, and then she talks to Miss Gretchen, and then she comes to my side, and she's like, hey, Miss Gretchen wants you in her office. And I'm like, okay, you know, okay, like she's probably just, you know, getting the story of everyone, like, oh, where this baby was. And so yeah, so I end up going in her office. She sits me down, and I will never forget that she looks at me and she goes, what makes you think it's okay to hurt babies? I'm like, excuse me? She's like, well, you were taking care of him too. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, so where was he? Like, where all did you put him? And I was like, oh, you know, I had him in the swing, I had him on the floor, I had him in the crib, you know, naming everywhere I had him. And I was like, you had him when he was crying. And she's like, oh. And then she basically looks at me and straight up, she basically just says, well, since he was in your care, it's your fault. I'm like, one, I was hardly on that side in the first place. And two, just because it's my classroom does not mean I did it. And she's like, well, I talked to Miss So-and-so, the owner lady. We're going to call him. We're going to... I go into her office, and all that stuff happens. And she's like, yeah, it'd be best. I contacted Miss So-and-so, and she decided just to let you go. I'm like, at that point, I started crying. She's lucky I started crying, because if I didn't start crying, I would have gave her, like, I would have, excuse my language, but I would have bitched her out. So, yeah. So, I was like, okay, so I signed the paper. Like, at that point, all I was thinking was my babies, you know, worried about them. And, like, I couldn't think of anything. So, I just signed the paper. Like, I didn't even read it. Dumb on my part. So, I didn't even read the paper. So, yeah. And then, she was like, well, I'll escort you, and you have to stand outside the classroom, and I'll get your stuff for you. I was like, whatever. So I walk with her crying, and the way the classroom was, the windows were like glass. Well, the walls were, they had windows, so you can see in and out. The babies were sitting at their table eating their snack, like in front of the glass window. So all I can remember is like the babies like looking at me, like looking up, seeing me crying with the most confused look on their face, like, and concerned, like, what's going on? Like, why is she crying? Like, why isn't she coming back in? And, like, that made me cry even more, because that just, like, broke my heart. Like, seeing, like, babies know stuff. Like, babies are smart. Like, they know when something isn't right. Like, when something wrong is going on. I, like, book it out of there. I go home, and I walk in the room. I walk in my house, and at this time, it's, like, 3:45, I want to say, close to 4, and I usually didn't get home till around 7. So my mom's like, oh, what are you doing home? And like, I walk in, like, closer to her, and she sees me crying, and she, like, basically, like, her jaw drops, like, what happened? So I ended up telling her what happened, and I kid you not, I have never seen my mom get that furious that fast. She was like, oh, hells no, like, I'm gonna call up there. So she called up there, and she asked for Miss Gretchen. Miss Gretchen, like, basically, like, oh, you know, well, this happened and blah, blah, blah. If she, you know, if she wants something, you know, she can talk to the owner on Monday. She won't be back till Monday. And we're like, okay. And then my mom ended up emailing. When they hired me, they said, oh, we can always go back and look at the cameras, you know, in case something happens with the kids, the parents want to see. I was like, okay, cool. Well, we can look at the cameras on Monday, because it'll show everything that happened, which you thought they would have done that first of all before assuming anything. But anyways, so that happens, and then a few weeks pass. Yeah, a few weeks pass, and this guy contacts me. He's like, hey, I'm from the child daycare safety thingy. It's not CPS, it's like some like child daycare facility safety thing, basically CPS for daycares. But yeah, I was like, okay, you know, you could come interview me at my house, get my statement, whatever. So we were talking to the guy, and I told the guy, I was like, well, they said they have cameras and they could record everything. And then he was like, oh no, I asked about that. They said that they delete every 24 hours. So I was like, so they lied to me when they hired me, and they can't even go back to look at the cameras. Okay, cool. Yeah. And then at this point, the guy was like, yeah, the the police are involved. You know, there's a whole investigation going on. This happened on a Wednesday. A lady from the child care place went out to the daycare to see the baby on that Friday. Guess what? Just take a wild guess. There was no marks on him. No marks at all. There's like, oh, this baby's fine. You know, there's no marks on him. You know, like, okay, well, obviously if they were like significantly bad or even any marks at all, like they would still be on him after 2 days. And they're like, yeah, it's gone. They're gone. I was like, okay, cool. So I basically just got fired for nothing. So, after that, I didn't end up giving the guy my statement because we wanted to talk to a lawyer. So we ended up talking to a lawyer, me and my mom, and she told me what to write. So, you know, everything that happened that day. And I gave him my statement. And then a couple weeks later, it took like a whole long process. The guy called me and was like, oh, there's nothing to find. So you basically didn't do it. So nothing happened. I was like, okay, cool. So I basically got fired for nothing. And that daycare is crazy. Like, I'm not talking about the parents or anything. Like, the parents and the babies there, like, love me so much. Like, I still think about them every day to this day. But yeah, but that is what happened. How I got fired, I guess you would say, from my job. But honestly, thinking back at it now, like, yeah, it still bugs me to this day. But I'm actually glad it happened because if it didn't happen, I wouldn't have the job I have now. And, you know, things just happen for reasons. So, funny how that worked out, which, I don't know. Yeah, so now I am a nanny to this little guy right here. Becker, say hi. Say hi. But yeah, so him. I have had this job for 4 months already, and I absolutely love it. It is better than any job I could ever ask for. To do with kids, of course. So yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed my storytime video. Give this a thumbs up if you want more storytime videos. Comment down below. And you might as well go ahead and subscribe since you're right here. If you're on a mobile device, it's in the little corner. Yeah? Thanks. Well, anyways, thank you guys for watching my video, and I will see you later. Bye!